Okay, hello and welcome to our Wednesday night live stream. I am your host, Dana Morningstar, and this is a live stream that we do pretty much every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it goes for about 3 hours. So if you are new here, welcome, and if you are returning here, welcome. So we have Kedra and High Quality Distraction so far. Benjamin Kamami, bonsoir Kamami. Miss Mariposa, hola. Hello everyone. Alyssa, Blue Moon. How is everybody doing? Do I have any other Game of Thrones fans on here tonight? If so, I'm curious to know what you guys thought of the last episode. I'm still processing. I'm still processing it. So, oh, you are. I saw your comment yesterday, Up Yours Narc, and I meant to comment on it. And then again, I spaced it out. So Up Yours Narc says, "Hi, Dana. I am reading your new book and I am just loving it. Well done." Thank you so much. It was such a long time in coming. And gosh, so, and it's one of those things like by the time you're at the end of it, you're not, you just, it's hard to kind of tell if the book is going to come across the way that you want it to, or if it's going to be helpful in the ways that you want it to. So thank you for that feedback because it's so hard when when you've read the same sentence, 40 different times to even tell what's going on anymore. So, yes, I guess I should let you guys know. Yes. So my third book, it's called The Narcissist's Playbook, is now, the ebook version of it is now live on Amazon. So it should be live on other sites here shortly, and then paperback and audiobook should be up, I would think, by the end of the month. So, well, thank you. Up Yours says you should be really proud of yourself. What a wonderful contribution. Yes. Well, thank you. This book is everything to do with manipulation. Everything. I will be curious to know what you think about the final parts of the book. So at the tail end of the book, I get into, so like the first, I don't know, 2 or 3 parts of the book are all about manipulation, like what it is, what it isn't, how it comes across, common ways that they go about manipulating people. There's a whole chapter in there about how you can tell if somebody's changed, and it goes through the cycle of change or the different stages of change. And it's just, I really tried to hit every single base topic that people normally have questions about. The tail end of the book, I cover the different rabbit holes that we discuss on here. So I will be curious to know what you think. Oh, well, thank you. Kim says, I'm listening to Out of the Fog right now. It is amazing too. Well, I appreciate that so very much. So very, very much. See, Kim says, comme ci, comme ça. How are you, Dana? Comme ci, comme ça. Bien, bien. My French is really rusty. I had, I think, 1 semester of it in 7th grade. So it didn't get very far. And I'm sure all of the French listeners of this show are just cringing right now. So, I wanted to hop in and mention a comment that I got the other day that I thought was so worth discussing. So this is from Jack and Jack Goodings. And Jack says, Now that I'm not needing or looking for validation from others, as I had before, I now feel like I'm not connecting with people. This seems to be a bit of a puzzle for me because I've realized that I don't know what healthy being connected with someone feels like. I've just realized this. Does anyone else feel this way too? And he touched on a point that I don't really know if we've ever discussed in here before. So I thought it was worth bringing up. And this is one of the challenges. So when people start making these shifts to turning inward and getting validation from themselves, they start noticing, oh my gosh, the way that I'm interacting with other people in the world as a whole is very different. And it can really cause some kind of like insecurity or doubt within them of like, well, gosh, I don't know what to say because I'm so used to asking other people or kind of going with the flow. I'm not used to being the one that's being decisive or, kind of taking charge of things or, making decisions, basically. So I think the big shift. So then it's sort of like, okay, then what do we talk about, right? If I'm not looking to other people to kind of lead the way, then what? And then the answer is, then we start talking about our hobbies, our interests. We're relating to people based off of healthy ways. So we're no longer, because here's the thing too, is so many of us have either related to people through seeking validation, or we were relating to other people based on some sort of crisis, either a crisis that we were in or a crisis they were in. And so it was always this kind of unequal dynamic. And whether we intentionally went about that or not, probably not, but that was the result. So whenever we're relating to another person and it's not on this level of mutuality, it's just such a game changer when we start relating to people based on kind of who we are and everything, different facets of ourselves. And then I think that can be a challenge too, because with trauma, when we go through abuse, it can feel like this defines us and that we only want to be around other people who can understand that, or other people who have experienced a tremendous amount of pain because we get them. And so relating to people based off of things that are, your likes, your interests, your hobbies, it's a different way of interacting with people. Okay. Yes. And Agatha says, Dana, it's not the relating. Wait, she says, Dana, it's the relating not out of the crisis, but just from freedom. Yes. So, and then also too, book club. We're doing book club tomorrow night because I ran out of time. No, I didn't run out. I guess we all have the same amount of time every week, right? I didn't manage my time very well this past month. I've been super crazy busy, but we're doing book club tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope you can make it. Same thing with you guys, book club people. James is saying, oh, okay. He says, I sure can. Okay, good. I just realized that I'd said that we would do it, but then I realized I didn't check with the book club people to make sure that works for them. So we're going to be discussing the book, The Anger Trap by Les Carter. And so I think it'll make for a good discussion. We'll see what you guys have to say. Hey, Slavic Princess, long time no see. Hey, Dora, lots of people, long time no see. Let's see here. Oh, thank you, Grace, for the live stream donation. She says, thank you for facilitating these conversations. Well, you are so very welcome. It's my pleasure to do so. It's a topic, I think there's so many of us that are so interested in making our lives work and figuring things out and, it's great to meet other like-minded people and to be able to have these discussions. So I'm glad I'm not alone in trying to assemble this giant puzzle. Slavic Princess says, I have been quite serious with my healing journey. Well, I would be curious to hear whatever you're comfortable sharing. Sounds like you've been really working hard. Very cool. Mary says, you've helped us so much. I've gotten stronger since the last live stream. No contact strong. Yay, Mary. Good for you. Slavic says, would it be, or Slavic Princess says, Dana, would it be offensive if I shared a legitimate success story with regard to psychological healing? No, not at all. Although I don't know how much, I think you're only allowed like 200 characters in the chat. So it might be kind of difficult to follow, but by all means, go for it. Okay, let's see here. Well, that's exciting. Hey, Lydia, saying that she's closing on a 3-bedroom condo on a lake next Wednesday. How delightful for you. That sounds like heaven. That's my version of heaven right there. That's exciting. Welcome to this next chapter in your life. That's a big, big victory. Yes, I agree. Slavic Princess says, I want other people to recognize that there is a light at the end of the tunnel in spite of how hard it is to be consistent with psychological healing. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we don't discuss enough of, for sure on my channel, but I think just kind of in general, even like in the support groups, is there are lots and lots and lots and lots of people that have been able to move forward. They've been able to rebuild their life into something better than it was before. And healing and hearing these different success stories, it can really help to instill hope. And especially if you're going to be sharing some lessons learned along the way, I think that's so valuable for other people, because there's so many different ways that, all of our experiences, even though they're similar, they're still different. And same thing with the different lessons that we learn. The more that people can share their success stories, of course, in a safe way and only with what they're comfortable with, it can help other people. Gaming Kid says, hi, Dana. I'm so lonely and I've been thinking about dating, but I don't want to be used or hurt again. Do you have any advice? Thank you so much. Yes, my first and foremost, I would say, have you ever heard of the acronym? It's called HALT, and it's HALT, and it stands for basically kind of slow things down or be careful, halt, halt when you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And when we're any one of those 4 things, we tend to make pretty impulsive and bad decisions. So those are kind of those four different elements to really make sure that you've got and kind of got figured out, especially before you start dating, especially the lonely part. So this is a big reason I'm a huge fan of meetup.com. I just strongly encourage you to expand your support system, have hobbies, have friends, have a life that you enjoy living on your own before you start dating, because it's very easy if we don't have any of that going on and we start dating because we are lonely. It's just kind of, I think, human nature to want to make that other, not even want to, we just end up making that other person our whole world, because we have nothing else going on in our world. So it's just really important to not put yourself in that situation, because then if that relationship isn't healthy, or if it's abusive, it's difficult to leave when it's the main thing you've got going on. So I would encourage you to start there, building up your support system, really making sure that you're dating from a place of like that you're wanting to meet a person instead of that you're needing to meet a person. So some other dating tips when you're going online, if you're going online, well, even if you're not, I guess I should say, especially if you're going online, okay? Especially if you're going online, is dating sites are just very different than what they were 5, 10, 15 years ago. And there's a lot of people out there that are just they're looking to cheat. They're looking for casual sex, and they're just not genuine people, I guess, right? They're looking to deceive. So what I have learned when I was dating was to really go slow, and to go slow, but to also go fast. And so what I mean by that is when you're meeting a person, going fast in the sense of you're not getting emotionally invested in them before you meet. So you're very quickly moving from email, just a few emails back and forth, to a few texts back and forth, to just a very casual meeting, not like a date, not like a big first date, but just, hey, let's meet for coffee, let's meet for a beer, kind of a thing. You buy your own drink, they buy their own drink. It's just a very casual kind of thing, 45 minutes, and then it ends. They're not picking you up. You're not letting them know where you live. You're not giving them access to your Facebook profile. You're not giving them your last name. None of that. You're just kind of seeing, because it's amazing the difference. You can have chemistry with somebody through their profile and be like, wow, I love the way this person writes. And then you can talk to them, you can text back and forth and be like, you can love their profile and then you can text and there's no connection. There's just not chemistry there. It's weird. Or you can talk, or maybe there is great chemistry there. And then you get on the phone and there's no chemistry. Or even if there is chemistry, then you meet in person and then there may or may not be chemistry in person. And also it's very common for people online, they put up their best pictures or their best old pictures, which is even worse. And so they don't look anything like that person now. So there's just a lot of different ways online dating can go south. So it's important to try to meet them in person as soon as you feel like there might be a connection and you're interested, and to not let them drag it on with all of these back and forth emails kind of a thing. If a person's, because some people they're looking to kill time at work. They're not even looking, they'll say everything a woman or a man would want to hear, but they're not looking for what they're saying that they're looking for. They're just looking to get sexy pictures, or they're looking to flirt or to kill time or what have you. So, and then just kind of, just some general safety precautions, like, letting somebody know where you're going, when you're going to be back, what this person's, if you know, their full name or even just their first name, where you met them, that you met them online, these kinds of things. Stay in a public place, just guard your drink, kind of what we have to do nowadays. Yeah, Ricky says, dating sites equals predator petri dish. Oh, that's so very true. It's a strange world out there. Yeah. A coffee shop or a police station. Yeah. A coffee shop, someplace where there's people. If you get a bad vibe, this is why I'm a big fan of people buying their own drink, male or female. A lot of women, especially if they haven't dated in a long time, they're used to being like, well, I don't want to just meet anybody. I really want to make sure that we have this amazing deep connection before we meet. And then then it just gets awkward. And then if you meet and there's no chemistry, then either you feel bad and have hurt feelings, or they feel bad and have hurt feelings, or, you know, you feel bad for them because you're not interested in them. So the whole buying your own drink thing. So meeting quickly. This way you're not developing this emotional connection and unintentionally leading somebody else on too. When there's a psychological principle at work, and it's kind of referred to as like the law of reciprocity. And it's when somebody does something for us that we tend to feel obligated to them. And car dealerships, this is a good example of this. Car dealerships know this. This is why when you go in to look at a car, they offer you a bottle of water or a soda, and they're trying to make you comfortable and all of these things, because it's a sales technique. If I give you something, then you're going to want to give me something. And because it's so deeply rooted within us, this is why I'm a big fan of, if you buy your own drink, it's amazing. You buy your own drink, you just don't feel obligated. So all of those feelings of, oh, I feel rude if I, end this early or what have you, it's that kind of stuff just isn't there. And then also letting the person know ahead of time, hey, let's meet for coffee, 45 minutes on a Wednesday or during the week. I wouldn't give somebody, a total stranger that you don't know if there's chemistry, I wouldn't give them prime time. I wouldn't give them Friday night or Saturday night or even weekend time. I'm just talking, you leave from work, you meet for a drink, and then that's it, just to see. Nothing special, kind of a thing. Let's see here. Yes, that's a great point, Slavic Princess. She says, Dana, I've been noticing how many more genuinely caring, if not very respectful people I attract into my existence. Loving yourself becomes easier the more you practice self-love. And yes, you bring up a really fantastic point. So one of the things that I think we were talking about this last week, because this is one of the many kind of potholes people fall into, is they think, well, where are all of these wonderful, nice, healthy, well-adjusted people? Where are they? Or, where are my fellow empaths, basically? Or where are my caring, people at? So one of the things we were talking about last week is, it's not so much that these people show up. It's not that these relationships just show up. It's that we are cultivating them. So what you said about self-love, what did you say again? Loving yourself becomes easier the more you practice self-love. Once you start making all of these little adjustments with like your boundaries, your standards, your deal breakers, your different ways of communicating with people, all of these little adjustments, it radically changes the way that you're interacting with other people, and then the way that they're interacting with you. And a lot of these problematic people just tend to kind of sift themselves out, which is fantastic. And then all of these other relationships that are more along the lines of what you're looking for, then these start to have the opportunity to grow. But because change, personal growth kind of stuff, there's so much that everybody's learning and applying. And sometimes it could just be something somebody says, and it's just this little aha moment. And it just changes the trajectory of your life by 1 or 2 degrees. And it seems so subtle, like it's a big thing at that moment, but then you kind of forget about it. There's probably dozens and dozens of those mini mental shifts that you've made over the past few years or so, so it looks like brand new people are showing up in your experience, but really it's everything that you're looking for and interacting with them, all of that's so completely different. And now it's become normal for you. So it's become kind of this unconscious process, which is so super exciting. So yay you for that. Let's see here. Yes, and that's a good analogy. Agatha says it's the same when you start exercising and wanting to live healthy. You see all the good, healthy options everywhere. They were always there. You just weren't seeing them because you weren't into it. Yeah, and it's amazing just when you when you see behavior in other people, when you start seeing the world for kind of what it is, and you see problematic behavior in other people for what it is, you're seeing it within yourself for what it is, and you're grounded in reality, and everything just starts to change because you've got your eyes wide open now, and it's just a game changer, an absolute game changer. Grace asks, how is it possible for us to change what we are attracted to? Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the more educated and aware you become about, I think about all of this really, about kind of what is healthy behavior, what is functional behavior, what is dysfunctional behavior, and then fine tuning that within yourself of, okay, what is nourishing for grace? What is draining for grace? Really getting clear on kind of, just what kind of soil you need to grow, basically. Once you start once we quit denying and minimizing and justifying problematic behavior, it, it, and you see it clearly, you realize there's nothing there, and it's just not, the appeal is just really not there for you. And if you're around it for any length of time, it almost makes you physically ill. It's back to Agatha's analogy of eating healthy. It's sort of like that. Like once you start moving in that direction of healthy and nourishing, it's, like with diets and way people are, I don't know, they go plant-based or whatever people do. What people don't talk about is your taste buds change. And so a lot of the old junk food that we might have craved before, we just don't even crave it. Like, here's an example. Last night I had class really late and I hadn't eaten all day, and I was busy, and I didn't realize I hadn't eaten until like 5:30 last night. And so I was really hungry by the time I realized this. And so I was like, oh, great. So I stopped at McDonald's and got some fries and like a cheese sandwich kind of a thing. And it was so disgusting. And I used to love McDonald's fries, and all I can taste now is just the oil. And, so it's weird. Like you think there's a time in our life where we think, oh, it'd be so hard to give this stuff up. I just can't even imagine. And we have to really think about it. We have to plan for it. There's this whole effort towards it. And then the more we do healthy things and we're supplementing that kind of undesired behavior with something that's healthy, once we transition, we just don't even want that. I mean, another example, I used to be the same way with Diet Coke. I used to be addicted to this stuff. It was ridiculous. Now I'm addicted to seltzer water. And I have no desire to drink soda, especially Diet Coke. It just does not have its appeal. Toxic, unhealthy people are the same way. Once you're used to being around an environment where it's nourishing and encouraging and empowering, and there's this sense of connection, and then there's that emotional safety, that's so huge. When other people have this emotional maturity, and when issues come up and conflict and confrontation surfaces, that people are able to bring it up, they're able to address it. There's not all of this kind of I guess you could emotionally immature behavior behind it. It's just so easy. It's just so easy to be around people like that. And you just crave it more and more. It's like, man, that's what I want more of in my life. Everything else is just, it's fast food. It's not filling and it's not nourishing. Okay, let's see. Um, yeah, very cool. Grace says, okay, yeah, I can see some signs of healthy changes. I've noticed my tastes are changing across the board slowly. And and you nailed it. It's changes across the board slowly. So because this whole thing, this whole journey through personal development, it truly is, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And sometimes we'll have those moments, like I was saying, these aha moments where bingo, I, you probably heard me call them, I call them minesweeper moments, where we have this moment and it just clears, like a fifth of the board and so much makes sense. We have those moments, those are awesome. But then we also have those small, subtle moments where we're like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I can do this instead of that. I can do this instead of that. And we just start making these little kind of low hanging fruit substitutions. And that all adds up. Sort of like the saying, there is no such thing as small change. That's why, because any change that you make, if you can imagine a line like extending out, if you don't have to make radical changes in order to be at a very different place 6 months or a year from now, or even 6 weeks from now. You just have to change that trajectory 1 or 2 degrees, and then time and practice does the rest. Let's see here. Pat says, well, what if your partner has addictions that magnify the narcissism? Well, I would encourage you to get clear on, I guess, your deal breakers and kind of what you're looking for in a relationship and where your line is in the sand and how much kind of time and energy and money and, sanity and safety that you're going to invest in this. Because that's, personality disorder is one thing, addictions are another. Both are equally incredibly destructive. So you combine it all together and it's a lot. I wrote about that a little bit in my book, this latest book, The Narcissist's Playbook, about the process of change and in terms of both different types of people that tend to be manipulative, people that are struggling with addiction, personality disordered kind of stuff, and kind of going through this. Because one of the things that people, here's the challenge. So there's this whole section in the book. I think it's things to think about before you start couples counseling. And a lot of people tend to think, oh, well, if my partner just got sober, then that would fix our relationship. And that's not the case. So who was it? Somebody in here a few weeks ago said it so perfectly. They said, sobriety is not recovery. And I love that, because it's not. Sobriety is just sobriety. It's just the first step. It's a big step and it's a huge victory, but it's not recovery. And sobriety and even recovery don't fix the relationship. Because what happens when you have a person in your life that has an addiction of any kind or abuse, everything, the relationship gets thrown into neutral and there's no growth that's happening. And what happens is the partner of the person that has this addiction or the abuse, they become so fixated on trying to get this behavior to stop. Like, if I can just get them to quit using drugs or stop drinking or to stop yelling or hitting or what have you, then things will be okay. And they don't realize. And so sometimes this will go on for years or decades and they don't realize, oh my gosh, we haven't had a relationship for years or decades. And then if this person ever does end up getting sober, then the partner is left with, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much anger and all of these pent up feelings that I've had because I haven't been able to express them because I've been so focused on trying to get them sober or to get them to quit abusing. And so it's just a lot. It's a long process. Yep. And Narcaway says, yep, always relying on hope or just waiting for them to change. Yeah. And that's a big shift that we talk about in here a lot as well, right? The changing out our toolkits. Whereas before, the old us, our strategies were basically hoping and coping and people pleasing. So we'll try to just smooth everything over, become very ingratiating, very accommodating, very kind of quote unquote forgiving, look the other way. We'll be there. Whenever you need us, day or night, we'll be there for you. And hoping that we can earn their good treatment or we can help them get sober through our niceness. And if that doesn't work, then we're going to hope that they're going to change. And if they don't change, then we're going to cope with the fact they haven't changed. And that toolkit doesn't really work in general, but it for sure doesn't work with problematic people. Thank you, Angela, for the live stream donation. So making, who says, thank you so much for everything, Dana. You are so very welcome. And thank you guys for all of your questions and for the chat. It's just, as a side note, it's so cool to kind of keep up with people and see where everybody is, like 6 weeks, 6 months, a few years out. It's just really, I don't know, really, I don't know if I want to say rewarding, but it makes my heart smile to see where people are. It's just cool. It's like seeing fellow travelers on the road, But yes, so switching out from the hoping, coping, and people pleasing to having a toolkit that's much more effective. So assertive communication, basically getting comfortable with confrontation and learning how to confront other people and set boundaries in a tactful, healthy, respectful way. Learning to set boundaries, learning like what we have control over and what we don't have control over. Just so many things. It's once a person realizes a lot of these things, trusting your own perceptions of things, trusting your own judgment, getting rid of the need for concrete proof that a person's actually, like we don't need to figure out somebody else's intentions. All we need to figure out is what works for us. If somebody's acting in a way that we're not okay with, then that's all we need to know. And then we can either say something or we can get some distance. All of these things, once a person starts doing that, everything changes for them. And I think these changes, it's so much easier to see this stuff in other people. And so if you guys are in the chat or if you are in the support group or both, you probably see this with newer people coming in a lot of times, and we can get very frustrated because we kind of over-identify with their situation because we see so much of our own thinking in what they're now going through. But I think if anything, it's just a good mirror to be like, okay, this is how far you've come. And, it's just growth. I think that's kind of the cool thing, but the frustrating thing about growth. So. Dora says, Dana, can someone who's been with a narcissist, like dating wise, pick up on the narcissist's traits? Do you mean pick up on traits in terms of like the next person, like you're now more aware of narcissistic traits, or do you mean that we can pick up some of their behaviors and have our own problematic behaviors? I guess I'll answer that either way. Well, thank you. up yours, Narc, for the live stream donation. It says, thank you for all you do. Well, I'm glad it helps. It's seriously, I've been doing this for, I don't know what, 4 years now. And it's absolutely wild to me that, that I'm even here. So I'm really glad that this helps. I really am. Oh, okay. So Doris says no behavior. So like, you mean that we could pick up problematic behavior, right? I just want to clarify. It's been a long day, Dora. Gotta use small words. Keep it simple, use small words. So as far as, I'm going to just start answering both ways and then you set me straight, okay? So if a person has been, so this is something that I see a lot of. People are like, oh, you know what? I dated a narcissist. That'll never happen to me. I know what to look for. I've been just, been there, done that. I don't want to ever go back. The problem with that is, okay. Okay, Dora, the second part of my question or what I'm saying will address that. Is problematic behavior. There's a whole wide range of problematic behavior out there. And some people can come across as, arrogant. Some people can come across as really charming and caring. Some people can come across as really aggressive, and they can be abusive verbally, emotionally, psychologically, physically, financially, sexually. Some people are very covert, and it's psychological, and it's just nonstop deceit. But then some people are just an absolute jerk. And some people are like your perfect partner. So they come across in a wide variety of ways. This is why I always try to really hammer home to make sure that people understand like the wider range of problematic behavior and how that tends to feel when we experience that. The first sign, it's always confusion. Like, what? Like, if you make that face, something's going on. It's that, what? You're knocked off balance. And it's when you can tell that's when you've had a boundary crossed, is when it kind of knocks you back a little bit. That's weird. That's funny. Did I hear that right? Did they mean that? I can't believe they said that. These kinds of things. Those are boundary violations. So it's really important that we get in tune with where ours are, and to make sure that our standards are high enough that stuff that should register as a problem is actually registering as a problem. So that's kind of its own other thing. But so just dating a narcissist isn't going to protect somebody from ever getting tangled up with another one, because they all come across in different ways. So it's the problematic behavior to be on the lookout for. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so the second part of that is, can we pick up problematic behavior after being abused or with an abusive person? Yes, absolutely. And so why that tends to happen is it tends to be when we're in a dysfunctional situation. Dysfunction is present when functional skills are not. And so if we're in a dysfunctional situation, odds are we're going to have to find dysfunctional ways to cope. So that's what people tend to do. And of course, at the time, we don't realize it as dysfunctional. We just think, oh, hey, I'm just in this relationship. I'm just trying to make this work. All of these messages that we're telling ourselves, commitments forever. I've got to compromise. I've got to, do this, do that. And so we're trying, not realizing that we're picking up some really unhealthy behaviors in order to try to make this relationship work. For example, people they become very accommodating, very people-pleasing, thinking, oh, but commitment takes work, not realizing that they're eroding their sense of self by compromising away their very core of who they are, because their partner's abusive and always has some issue with them. So it's very common for people who are involved in an abusive situation to numb out in a wide variety of ways with, some common ways are drinking, drugs, eating, spending money, these kinds of things. So yes, after the abuse is over, it's important. I think it's important for all of us to, when we get to that place, because this takes time. I mean, the pain of these relationships, it's intense. It's like a 3rd-degree sunburn, and that kind of lasts for a while. And so then, when a person's in that state, like they can't be touched, if you've ever had a really bad I've never had a 3rd-degree sunburn, but even a 1st-degree sunburn is painful. And you're like, you know what, just stay away from me. Don't touch me. Don't even think about touching me. Don't even joke about touching me. Like, I just need some ice, right? Like, I just need to be left alone and I need to heal. But when a person gets past that stage and that sunburn is calmed down and they're not so reactive and they're at that place where they can start turning inward, it's really important that they do, because even if they were this healthy, well-adjusted person, there's going to be changes after abuse in ways that they haven't even begun to fathom yet. And so it's really good to just not, I think, come from a place of non-judgment when we're looking at ourselves through this lens. And it doesn't mean that whatever happened to you, that you somehow, caused it or deserved it or anything like that. It's not that at all. It's, you go through an extreme situation, there's going to be changes. And so then it's kind of like, okay, well then let's figure out what has changed. But it's challenging because this stuff it tends to fly below our unconscious mind. It's just not on our active radar. So it can take a little bit of doing to sort through. This is why this book that I just did, the last part of it goes through lots of different things for people to look at, because this is the other challenge with trying to figure out, okay, well, what areas have been eroded that I'm not aware of. So it's like you're looking for something that you don't know that you've lost, like that right there just is, you're wandering around for a long time trying to put the pieces together, and it's frustrating. But the last part of my book, which is the Narcissist Playbook, it talks about these are some of the ways, these are some of the results of when self-esteem has been eroded. These are some of the personality traits that are exploited. This is kind of what this imbalance can look like. Because the added challenge too with a lot of this stuff is when it's out of balance, it might still work for us in some areas. And not only might it still work, it might even be rewarded. So for example, I was a nurse. And then before that, I was a teacher. So my whole, now I'm an advocate. So a lot of the imbalances in my own personality traits worked in my favor. They helped me to become a better nurse and a better advocate and work better with children, especially special needs kids. And so it was difficult for me to see that could have ever been a problem, because it was only a problem in certain areas of my life. And I think a lot of people feel that way. They're like, no, there's nothing, like there's no imbalance here. It was 100% this other person. And then it takes them years and years and years for them to realize, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that this trait could ever be imbalanced, that this could ever be a problem, that I could have, be quote unquote too forgiving or too compassionate or too caring. And that could be a sign of some boundaries that need work. So let's see here. Let me scroll up. Oh, Agatha said she sent me some questions. Okay. Grace says, yeah, the charming ones are really hard to avoid. I see the flag. Now what? So if you are we talking about in terms of dating? If uh, basically, then it's if somebody's telling you, actually, let me back this up even a little bit further, because then people get caught up in, well, but what if, what if this is not love bombing? Like, what if they're not a narcissist? How can I tell the difference between, somebody who's just really into me versus somebody who's love bombing? And then, that line gets real muddy real quick. So I think if you back up a little bit and look at it in terms of emotionally immature behavior. So if a person's coming on really strong right out of the gate, they're telling you everything that you want to hear. They're, there's kind of just a bunch of flattery, these kinds of things. It's at a minimum, it's emotionally immature. So, and they might have sincere intentions. They might just try and be making a good impression, but I think we need to see that this is not real. Like, this is their idealized version of you. So when a person's telling you that they love you, like on the third date, and when they're being very charming and they're really playing this whole part of this perfect partner, it's, you don't really know a person, I think, until you have a disagreement with them. So anything before that's just pillow talk, as far as I'm concerned. But if somebody's really blowing smoke at you, then, and they're just really schmoozing you and, oh, if I had like online dating, oh, if I had a woman like you and I would do this and blah, blah, blah. Like, they're probably just looking for sex and or they're a con artist, because that's what a lot of the online scammers do. Yes, and that's a good point. Local Tourist says, we all seem to understand that this is not our problem, yet we still validate these people's opinions by giving them weight. Eventually, we might not be able to let the bad behavior bother us at all. Yes, and by and large, you can get to that point where you see this nonsense for what it is, and you just kind of realize it just doesn't even sway you, and it doesn't even upset you. It's just nothing, because you're like, well, there was a quote I had heard a few weeks ago that said something along the lines of, don't take criticism from somebody you wouldn't take advice from. And I just thought that's so spot on, because it's, if you don't respect what if they don't respect their opinion, then don't respect it, like the advice or the criticism. And when you see this stuff coming down the track and you just realize there's nothing here for me, this is all just drama and a headache and chaos, it's so much easier just to hop out of the way and to just detach. And anybody else and because you're getting more grounded in yourself and you're knowing what's right, what works for you and what doesn't work for you. When you're getting this well-intended bad advice from other people who are equally dysfunctional, saying, oh, well, you really need to give that person a chance. Oh, yes, I know they're fresh out of prison and they have this terrible violent history and this, that, and the other, but it's all about forgiveness. You don't get caught up in that. You're able to realize, well, okay, have a nice day. Like, you just don't even, you don't argue it. You just realize this person, this is where their thinking is with this. And if they want to do that, that's fine. But they don't get to vote on my life. I'm an adult. And just because they think that I should go be friends with a violent felon or, make any number of really terrible decisions, that's okay. Like, they can think whatever they want to think. I'm still going to do what I'm going to do that I feel needs to keep me safe and sane. And I just don't even internalize it. Ricky asks, would I find less narcissists on Christian Mingle as opposed to Tinder? My guess would be no. So, but let's back that up a little bit and talk about this, because this is an important point. So one of the common things that people tend to do is, this is again an unconscious thing that we all tend to do, is we all tend to like and trust people that are like us. So if another person has some sort of trait that is something that you have, so for example, religion is a big one. Like if you're Christian, there's kind of there's this assumption that, okay, if another person's Christian or any faith, that they have the same set of morals and values as you. And that is not the case. So especially with religion, there's a lot of predators on different religious dating sites because of that, because people are very quick to assume that these other people are moral, they have morals and values, and that can get people into hot water. So the only way, and here's the thing too, is even if a person's not a narcissist, even if they're just a quote unquote normal person with problematic behavior, when you're able to discern the difference between like what's problematic behavior and what's really, I would say, healthy behavior, kind of where that line is for you, then it makes things so much easier, because then if anything uncomfortable surfaces, because it will, that's natural. That's going to be the differences between two people, no matter how sincere and, honest and healthy and all of that both people are. There's still going to be differences, and there's probably still going to be some boundaries that are accidentally crossed, because nobody else knows where our boundaries are unless we let them know. So if any of that stuff starts to happen, this is where it's so important to be able to realize, okay, yes, my boundaries were crossed. Now what? Now what do I do? And was this like a minor boundary violation, or was this a pretty major boundary violation to where it's deal breaker stuff? So, and then that really just depends on you. But, I would encourage you, if anybody's treating you disdain, contempt, hostility, if they're with a lack of dignity and respect, I would just be out the door, because you're going to keep seeing, because that's a problem. And if a person can't even hide that, especially the first few dates, you're going to really see a lot more of that in the future. Okay, let's see. I was seeing that too. Overcomer was saying, is it just me, or are the red shades in the painting flashing behind Dana? Yes, they were. And I don't know why. I guess it's when I go back. It's like the auto focus or something. That's so weird, because there's the overhead light on, but there's no other lights on in here. It's weird. Let's see here. And that's a good plan, Kevin. He says, I'm trying to become more independent before even thinking about dating. Yeah. I think it's important that we're at a place where, that you have value that you have, and you know what you bring to the table. Because if a person's even questioning that, if they don't like themselves, if they don't feel like they are bringing anything to the table, then they're going to be interacting with other people from this place of scarcity and low self-esteem, where then instead of focusing on being choosy, we're going to focus on being chosen. So we're like, oh boy, this person's, really attractive, or they're funny, or whatnot. I really hope they pick me, versus taking the time to see, like, is this the kind of person I want in my life? Like, what's their story? What are they about? And is this what I'm looking for? Is this, makes a huge difference when you know what you got. Okay, let's see here. Yep. Angela says, Dana, I'm a registered nurse too, 38 years actively. Oh my gosh, good for you. 10 years on med surg and 28 on psychiatry. NPD is hardly addressed. Yep. I know it's frustrating, isn't it? NPD, even I would say even antisocial personality disorder. I mean, you see more of that just because, if you get prison records from patients, but like, geez, it's frustrating. Gosh, the thought of 10 years on med surg just, it hurts my feet. Even thinking about all of the running that you must have been doing for 10 years. Oh, gosh. Jennifer was saying, in her case, her sister is a flying monkey without trying to be malicious. Like maybe she really is just manipulated by her dad and just wants everything to be back to normal. And yes, and her situation was her father had abused her as a child for so long to the point where he had to make her promise to not go to the police. Here's the thing. Sometimes flying monkeys, they're not malicious. They really feel like they're doing the right thing, that they're trying to push the target back into this situation. It's very common. I see this a lot with family. You see it a lot with different people, especially like church environments where you've got an abusive person who, claims that they found God and that they want a second chance and that they'll do anything to make it work. And they put on this whole performance, and now they've got different, they've got the spiritual leader and other members of the congregation pushing the target back into the relationship. So yeah, that kind of stuff is common. But, I think it's okay for you to hold your boundary. And you've shared more about your situation in the past. And yes, I think hands down, I don't know. My 2 cents is, what? He tore up his parent card the moment he laid a hand on you. And it's absolutely wild to me that another adult doesn't see it that way, that your sister's more focused on your father being, and to me, that's not even like, it's not even apparent. Like she's more concerned about the parental role. Oh, but he's family. And it's like, well, it's important that you focus on the destructive thing. John Wayne Gacy has family. Charles Manson has family. Scott Peterson has family. Like people that do really heinous things have family. And this whole idea that, we just need to forgive and forget and it's water under the bridge, it's terrible. It's invalidating and it's dangerous. And, yeah. So I am 100% behind you if you're like, you know what? And you don't have to continue to have these conversations with your sister either. You can tell her, hey, you know what? I know that you really want me to have a relationship with dad, but everything that he did, I'm done. Like there hasn't been a relationship present since then. And please stop bringing it up and let her know. Like, I don't want to have this conversation again. I've had to work really hard in my healing to get to this place. Don't bring it up. And if she brings it up again, I would let her know. I love you. I know that you're coming from a good place on this. This is deeply painful for me. And this is my boundary. And if you bring it up, I don't want to have to start limiting contact with you. But if you bring this up, I'm going to have to start limiting contact. Like it's just, his behavior is egregious. How old is your sister? Jennifer says her sister says that she hates him because she hates the monster inside of him. She's 29, hates the monster inside of him and wants to rip it out so she can have her daddy back. She's 29, Jennifer's 33. Well, yeah, right, Julie, you're so right on. Julie says it sounds like you could use a safe hug. Yeah, that I agree. I agree. Well, it's, and this is one of these things that it's going to probably take her a whole many, many years to reconcile these two sides of him. That, you know what, that monster is not just something in him, that is him. That's a part of his personality. And I think we all wish that there was some sort of, surgical operation that could remove behavior like that, but it doesn't work like that. And statistically speaking, people that abuse children and in that way, they don't change and they don't stop. And so it's just, from a safety perspective, it's, like you're putting up boundaries, you're putting up appropriate boundaries to keep yourself safe. And it's, so yeah. And yeah, I agree. Julie, you're spot on. Says until she leaves that fog, you will need to be careful with her. Yep. And that's a good point too, Lauren, who says, no one can rip the monster out of these people. She's trying to save him, which is also unhealthy, even if she means well. Yes, I agree. And Jennifer says, well, she brought it up today because she doesn't know how we would go to my grandma's funeral when it happens. But I've gone to my grandpa's funeral the same way. So why would she even bring it up? Yeah, I think people sometimes are looking for excuses, and it sounds like she's still holding on to this fantasy of how she wants it to be. And, it's interesting too, when people think about not doing anything again. This is very common for people that are struggling with alcoholism. The mind is a funny thing, like where we can go. It's common for one of the first thoughts for a person to have once they get into rehab is to be like, well, but can I never have a drink at my daughter's wedding? But what about, and they think about just these kind of, one-time events. And this but I need to have, I need to figure out a plan for like what I'm going to do in this one-time event. And it sounds like your sister's doing kind of the same thing. Like, well, but what about this one thing? And like you said, you know what? I'll handle it. I've been handling it. I will handle it. Don't worry about it. Like, you don't need to fix anything. You don't need to solve anything. You don't need to try to repair anything. Like, I got this. Let's see here. Let me scroll up. Angela says, I'll have to go now. I'll see you guys soon. Love and validation to all. Thank you so much, Dana. Yes, medical surgical did hurt my feet. LOL, but it was a great experience. So funny about our feet. Yes. I remember when I was in nursing school and you have different clinical rotations, and your first one is generally med surg. And right away, oh man, my knees and my hips were killing me. And I thought I could never do this for 12 hours a day. How do these nurses do that? Let's see here. J-Bat says, why do I mourn for the person who treated me so badly, who I know won't change? It's grieving the loss of the fantasy. It's That's what, oh man, that is one of the hardest things for so many of us, because we all kind of go through life being fed this fantasy. So it's not like we just came up with this out of nowhere. This whole fantasy about kind of what a family is like, what a mother is like, and a father, and what siblings are like, and what a relationship is like, or what a marriage is like. And if we don't realize that that kind of is just fairy tale stuff, and then we get into these, real world dynamics with different people, and it doesn't fit this idea of what we're told through, I mean, literally, like through movies, through books, through other people, you hear stories at church, what have you. And then if our own situation doesn't match up to that, it's just really difficult to understand and to let go. And again, movies, like so many different comedies and kind of feel good movies around holiday times, really like exploit the fantasy is what it is. They'll feed into this fantasy of, oh, you can make everything different. Family can come together. There can be a Christmas miracle. If you give another person enough love and hope and understanding and rehab and religion, they can eventually make this turn and change, and you can have the mother you've always wanted, or the spouse you've always wanted, or what have you. And that's the kind of stuff that keeps people hooked. And then, so we're all kind of fed those messages on one hand, but then when we're actually living it, realizing, okay, I've got to let go of this. I need to start moving forward and heal. Like, what's wrong with me? Why do I miss this abusive person? And it's not so much them, it's the fantasy that we had about the relationship that we could have with them. So, and it takes time. It just takes time and it's okay. It's okay to mourn the loss of the relationship that you wanted to have and the person that you thought they were. Totally normal, appropriate, reasonable. I think something that we've all had to go through. So, and I know a lot of people kind of, they feel like there's something wrong with them. Like, what's wrong with me? Why do I miss this person who was so terrible to me? And nothing wrong with you. You were in what you thought was a relationship with just a very damaged person, and not realizing that it was abusive. So, okay, let's see. Let's scroll up here. Yeah, Jennifer was saying, she says it's strange because when I came out about my abuse, she was so supportive and went to therapy even for a few months. But after she thought she was done with therapy, she kind of went in the other direction. She's not hateful or doesn't support me, but she almost wants me and him to make amends, which will never happen. Yeah, it sounds like she just has to work towards that acceptance and letting the fantasy go. I mean, and that's probably going to be a long road for her as well, but good for you for holding your boundary and just saying, hey, you know what? I've made peace with this. I'm working on making peace with this and holding my boundaries and doing what I need to do in order to move forward in my life. Like, I see his behavior clearly. I see all of his stuff clearly. And it's not that you're holding a grudge. It's not any of that. It's just healthy boundaries. Okay, let me scroll up here. Yeah, that's well said, Sam. He says, yeah, it sounds like She wants to delete what went on between you and him and minimize the acts and the abuse so she can have her fantasy needs come true, which is having you both with her. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, Jennifer says it's odd because my rational mind has saved me a lot, but I still have a lot of very confused feelings. Brains are weird. Yes, yes, they are. And this is, I mean, it's confusing. This kind of stuff, when we're hurt by somebody that's supposed to care for us, it's confusing. And that's just scratching the surface. That's not even including all of the other manipulation involved. So yeah, it's a confusing situation all the way around. Healing Hopeful Survivor says, hey, Dana, how does the scapegoat child and golden child narcissistic mother dilemma work? Is it possible for there to be more than one golden child or scapegoat? Yes. So there's kind of just this whole theory that in general, we all of us play different roles in a family, and especially in a dysfunctional family. And so there's the role of the golden child or the hero. There's the lost child. There's the scapegoat. There's, trying to think, is there another one? Those are the ones I remember. I think, okay, those are the ones. I'll have to look it up, double check, but those are the ones I remember. And so when you have, so each child tends to either play a role or get shoved into a role. So the scapegoat is the one where it can never do anything right. He or she's always blamed for everything. The hero or the golden child can do no wrong. But of course they have their own issues because then they're pushed into perfectionism. There's a lot of eating disorders that tend to occur with golden children. Just level of perfectionism. They tend to get really good grades in school. They really build up their identity around kind of doing everything right. So it's a hard way for them to live, even if it seems like they get out of a lot of being the target of abuse. They suffer in their own way. The lost child is the one that's just kind of invisible and is just neglected emotionally, physically, both. So if you have, let's say you have a family that you've got, I don't know, a handful of kids in there, 5 kids or so, it's possible. I have a friend of mine, her mother only focused her abuse on her. And she has 2 or 3 other sisters who their mother was difficult and, abusive in, I guess, more milder ways, but they weren't the focus of it. So they were more like the golden children, whereas my friend was definitely the scapegoat. And that dynamic, and it's just going to depend on the different dynamics present. But like her situation, she was everything that her mother wasn't, for better and for worse. She had curly hair. Her mom had straight hair. She was very creative and artistic. Her mother was not. She was very much a free spirit. Her mother was very angry and kind of uptight. A lot of people gave her a lot of attention because she was darling. She's still darling. Really, just super curly, Shirley Temple kind of hair. And, men loved her, and her father adored her. Her mother was very jealous that her father was so doting to her. Just things like this. So sometimes that can happen where if you have a narcissist or narcissistic parent, then sometimes the golden child might be every trait that the parent likes that they can identify, like every trait that that parent likes in that child. Again, so it could be physical traits. Oh, this child looks like me. They have my same name. Therefore, I'm going to treat them really well because I'm over identifying with them. Or it could be this child is somehow like, I have all of this unresolved business. And so now I'm putting it on this other child. You see this a lot with like, stage moms and, kind of like, okay, I've got all of these goals and dreams I never got to live. So I'm just going to live them all vicariously through you. And the child doesn't have a choice. Like, you will play baseball. You will, like be in pageants. You will do this. And these kids are like, this isn't me. And, parents are like, I don't care. It has to be you. If you're going to fit in this family, it's going to be you, kind of a thing. So. Yeah, it's a challenge. The scapegoat child, that's one thing that's really tragic about the golden child, is because again, a lot of this behavior, it's not a problem as far as society sees it, right? So it's real easy for it to fly under the radar. Wow, here's this kid. They're in AP classes for everything. They're getting a 4.0. They're super achiever. They're doing all of these things. They're playing 3 different sports and doing all of these things. And it's sort of like, okay, this kid has no problems because look at how much they're able to do. Look at successfully, not realizing all of the pressure and then the pushing that tends to occur with that, either intentional or even unintentional, or I should say maybe overt and then covert ways where it's very much understood. I think for that golden child, it's understood, like if your grades drop, then so does my level of respect for you as a parent. And that's ouch, right? But the scapegoat children, because they tend to start acting out. So you see this a lot in schools where the kids are very behavioral. And these are the ones that tend to get a lot of attention. And more often than not, they're the ones that tend to get into treatment first. So it tends to be kind of like the black sheep of the family, who tends to be the scapegoat, who's in so much pain because they've been blamed for everything for decades. They're oftentimes the first one to go into therapy and then realize, oh yeah, no, I'm not crazy. Like, our family's really jacked. Right? Like, it's not just me. This is what's been going on. And then sometimes, because that tends to be the entry point, then it can wake up other members of the family that have that ability to be self-reflective and interested in personal growth. Jennifer was saying one of her stepbrothers was definitely the scapegoat because her dad overtly psychologically abused him. He treated her very special. And with her stepbrother, he treated him very poorly. And he's been homeless for over a decade now. Yeah. Oh, that's just tragic. Yeah. Every time I see a homeless person, and there's quite a few of them around here, I always wonder, like, what is the story? Like, what is the story there? So it's so tragic because, it's more than just drugs and alcohol. There's reasons behind that. Okay, let's see here. Let's scroll up. Yes, and True Seeker, I agree, says, it's sad being a scapegoat becomes a blessing in disguise as an adult. Yeah, it does. It just goes back to that pain. Pain is such a powerful messenger if we can see it that way. And it can definitely send us on like a long, lonely road especially if we start kind of waking up to stuff and nobody else in the family does. But it's a powerful messenger, and it can really take a person's life in a very positive direction if we can squeeze out all of the benefits, all of the doors that it opens. Okay, let's see here. Let me scroll up. Oh, thank you, JCat, for the live stream donation. JCat says, Dana, thank you for all of your insight and validation you provide. Well, you are so very welcome. Thank you for your nice words. It's just so cool. The internet is such an amazing thing. It's just so cool that we can all connect. What a time to be alive, huh? Yeah, and that's a very valid point too. Truth Seeker says, the golden child is tethered to the abuser. It's so much worse. It's its own level. It's its own kind of world of pain and hurt. And I think too that the challenge for them is they may never realize that they were abused for a lot of different reasons, because they were always put on a pedestal, and because they were never yelled at or hit or, actually abused, but all of the emotional and psychological abuse that tends to go along with that, and that whole erosion of their identity too. It can just be really tragic. And if they do ever come around and realize, oh yeah, okay, this was abuse and my parent was incredibly controlling, and this is the damage that it's caused me, other people are definitely not going to be inclined to see it. Like, what are you talking about? Your parents gave you everything. You were, look at everything they did for you. You were on 3 different sports teams, and you were, science fair and all of this stuff. And it's, that's a good way to put it, Ricky. Ricky says, so the effect of the narcissism in a family creates a breakfast club type situation. I never thought of that before. Yes, it does. That's spot on. Yes, the movie, The Breakfast Club. For those of you, that's a fantastic movie. Classic. If you have not seen The Breakfast Club, you need to see it. Great. Who was in that? Judd Nelson, Molly Ringwald. What was his name? He's such a great actor. I'm totally drawing a blank. He was in Weird Science. What's his name? Anthony Michael Hall. Great movie. Oh, that's right. Kevin Oldman, Emilio Estevez. Yes. Benjamin says, I must see The Breakfast Club, LOL. Hooray, says Dana, if my ex-husband's family now can see his terrible behavior because he has nothing to do with his 3 children, however, they never seem to validate my feelings regarding the divorce. I think in large part, people don't know what to say. And I think people in general, myself included, this is something that I've been trying to work on, is we are not taught as a society how to basically just sit with people in their pain and to validate them. And so what we tend to do instead is we try to instantly make them feel better, or we minimize what they're going through. And it has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with our own unexamined anxiety about the situation. So that's something that when anybody is going through a difficult time, whether it be a divorce, a death, these kinds of situations, what do we tend to say? Oh, so somebody died. I'm really sorry for your loss. And then people just tend to kind of fade into the background because they just don't know what to say. They might here in the Midwest, they bring over a casserole. Like that's what you do. I'm so sorry for your loss. Here's lasagna, right? And then that's kind of it. So because we don't know how to handle this. And especially if somebody starts crying or with a divorce, it's sort of like, well, I don't want to be rude. I don't want to ask them too much. I don't quite know what to say. And it can just be very awkward for them. So I would try to not take it personally. I think it's just more of, it's just their limitations, not yours. People, I don't know. Even if a person's been through a divorce, if it's been a long time, they just tend to forget like how incredibly painful it can be. And if a person's never been through abuse of any kind, or if it's been a long time and a lot of that pain is kind of, again, it's sort of like the sunburn analogy that I was talking about earlier. You have a really bad, let's say 2nd degree, 3rd degree sunburn. You have a really bad sunburn. You can't forget. It's there and it's with you 24 hours a day and you are in so much pain and it's there. After that sunburn fades, it's amazing how quickly we can forget how bad it really hurt. And pain in general can be like this. Like it does tend to fade with time. And, it's people forget. I forget. There's things that I'll say, even in the live streams or in the support group, where later on somebody will message me and, or I'll catch myself or that delete something and just say, oh my gosh, that was really insensitive. Like that was for sure not my intention. You just forget when you've been out for years and years, just how raw that pain can be. I don't know. Empathy, like truly expressing empathy it's one of the many skills that we're just not taught. And, this class that I just finished taking on crisis and trauma, that was one of the many exercises that we had to do was to practice sitting with people who were in crisis and to not jump in and try to fix them or to make them feel better and just to sit there. And it was so incredibly difficult because you see this person who's in a tremendous amount of pain and you want to give them hope. You want to take their pain away because you care. But just realize that can be so invalidating. And so just to sit there and let them know, like, yes, you have every right to cry and to be hurt and to feel the way that you feel. This is a shock. This is painful. And to just stay there with them. It's difficult. Overcomer says, what are some common behaviors of the scapegoat? Well, I think they tend to lash out. You tend to get kids that, very defiant. They're angry. That kind of stuff they kind of get an axe to grind. They're defiant. They get in trouble at school. They're not doing homework. They're just acting up in a wide variety of ways. They're probably smoking, drinking, having sex, doing all kinds of things pretty young. Sometimes the lost kid can do that as well. But the lost kid really tends to slip into being invisible more than anything. Yeah, Hooray says, thank you. That makes sense. I'm sure knowing that family, they do not have empathy. It's interesting. It's interesting when you see there are these different times in our life where you really like, that's really profound, where you see, wow, this person, like you kind of realize, okay, yeah, we're all different, but we all kind of, I think, tend to think that we're more similar than different. And then you have these moments where a person just has a response to a certain situation that's so far away from what you would consider for sure something that you would do, or somebody like in your inner circle would do. Family is a great example of that. And people that, maybe, I don't know, just relatives that maybe, well, even immediate family, then you just realize, oh my gosh, like that is just shocking how people respond. I don't know, just seeing other people, how they respond to communication and feelings. Funerals, I think, can be really interesting kind of people watching. That sounds really dark and disturbing, and I for sure don't mean it that way, but it's amazing all of the stuff that can come up or not come up, and when there's some sort of significant death in a family, and you realize, oh my gosh, this person's totally like minimizing this, they're denying it, they don't want to feel any of this, they're really just, they're staying busy to avoid feeling sad. Whereas other people are very expressive about things. And then there's the people that are very expressive. Oh my goodness, I'm so sad. This person was really they're going to really be missed. They, and they're very articulate about this is why I'm going to miss them. This is what, like they're really articulating their thoughts and feelings about this person. And for those other people that are not comfortable with those kinds of conversations, they completely freak out and become very uncomfortable, which, I guess for those of us that are more comfortable expressing emotion, it's just so strange. It's just hard to understand, like why or how somebody could struggle with that. Or, yeah. LAT asks, how can the non-narcissistic parent minimize the damage done to the kids? Well, I think first and foremost, are we talking about parents that are still married or living separate? If we're talking about parents that are living separate, it's kind of easier, since you would have control over the house because it's your house, you're not sharing it with your ex. Really making an effort to create a safe space for your child. So, and doing bonding things with them is very important. Just letting them know, hey, I'm on your side. I think being specific when you're spending time with them, when you're trying to catch them doing things right. Hey, you know what? Thank you so much. You did your homework obviously it depends on their age, right? You did your homework without me even asking. Thank you so much for doing that. You're such a neat kid, or, you've gotten up on your own for the past 3 days in a row. And how about we go celebrate and go to the water park, or go, get some ice cream or whatever. These kinds of things. So really, because they're not getting that validation and that kind of feedback, most likely, with the abusive parent. So pointing out things about just catching them every single turn. Oh, and it's sincere, right? Oh, you did a great job on that test. I know you really studied hard for it. You're a smart kid, or you're creative, and here's why. Finding specifics so they don't just feel like you're just blowing smoke at them. And then letting them know that, hey, you can talk to me. Like this is your space. This is your room here. This is your space. I want us to be able to talk about things. I don't want you to feel that it's going to that it's going to hurt my feelings, or that you need to protect me. If there's anything going on, that I'm on your side, and I can handle it. kind of a thing. If they're coming to you and they're saying, oh, mom or dad said something and it really hurt my feelings, or I can't, they let them down again. These kinds of things, just validating them, yeah, that sucks. That really sucks. I don't blame you for feeling disappointed and upset and hurt. I think anybody would feel that's the exact same way. And just letting them know, yeah, it's not right. It's not fair. I'm sorry. But I think the main thing is to keep connection open with them. Because one of the challenges too, when you've got an ex who's manipulative or abusive in any way, is they can very easily, because they have a pathological reality. So kind of being on the lookout of them potentially poisoning the child against you. So manipulating the child, telling them kind of their side of things, which is not reality, right? It's a very skewed version of events because they've minimized everything they've ever done wrong. And then they just focus on what you've done. So really trying to keep communication open, making time. If there was extensive manipulation and abuse, I would really make it a point to have that one-on-one time with their child where really creating these different kind of bonding experiences and routine. Routine can really help a person to start feeling safe because then it's that predictability in their environment. So maybe you do something, you guys make pizza every Friday night, or you go out for a soda. I don't know. It just depends. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like you find some sort of routine that you get into that the child can start getting comfortable that this is just our routine. And then they know there's also built-in time around that. So if, let's say you guys, okay, we're going to go out and get a soda. This is what we do. We go out to this, we get a soda, we go to the park, or we go for a walk or what have you. Then they know, okay, then there's going to be like an hour or so time where they can just talk about whatever. And so it kind of frees it up. These kinds of things. Yeah. And Grace says, my kids get so disappointed in their dad's inability to keep his word most of the time. It's a challenge to validate them without making it seem like I'm bashing their dad. I try very hard. Yeah. And I think if you can talk about the behavior and not him as a person. So if your child, they're crying, dad said we were going to go camping and, he's not here. You just said he had to work late and you saw this coming. You're like, yeah, he's always got something last minute and it's generally not work. It's his new girlfriend or what have you. To just say, yes, I'm so sorry that you guys aren't going to go camping. I know that you were really looking forward to this. It's understandable that you would be hurt, that you would feel hurt by this. It's not right and it's not fair. And validate them that way. It can be so incredibly difficult to not, when we have a loved one who's been wronged in some way, I think most people tend to feel like, I want to stand up for this person. And so this is what happens in any abusive dynamic. Then we're like, oh, that jerk, I can't believe he did that. I wish he, but that tends to have the opposite effect because not only is it bashing the person, but then especially with children, then it makes them even more defensive. Sort of like, well, I have a right to be mad at my dad because it's my dad. But if you're going to talk bad about him, then I'm going to get defensive because now you're talking bad about my dad. And so it doesn't help. It just doesn't help any at all. That's a great way to sum that up, Truth Seeker. Says clarity, stability, and validation. I love that. Yep. Those three things. Yeah, stability is absolutely huge. It really, really is. Yeah, and that's a challenge, Gigi, for sure. She says, my children are angry with me that I can't afford the gifts and experiences that their father can offer during his visitation. I made out to be deficient. Yeah, I think probably a lot of parents go through that, especially if their ex makes more than them. And it's a challenge too when the ex is, if the ex isn't really in the picture, then they come in and it's sort of like, oh, it's Santa Claus, and then they leave and you're like, oh, well, great. Here I am day in and day out doing, bath time and laundry and dinner and homework. And then Santa Claus gets to show up, be the great guy or good woman, right? Good person. Everybody loves Santa Claus. And then I get stuck with all of the, it's the thankless day in, day out stuff uh, you know, kids that just don't appreciate that. That's difficult. It's difficult. It's a good question, Blue Moon. Blue Moon says, Dana, can you be both the golden child and the lost child at different times? I'm sure that a person can. I think throughout our lives, we play different roles based on kind of what's required of us. And I mean, to me, it would make sense that, let's say, if a child was younger and you had a parent that was very over identified with them, and that child became the golden child. They had this, they looked like the parent, they had the same name as the parent. They just, they were the golden child. But then as that, let's say that child hits their teen years and then they start really kind of stepping into their own individuality. And then all of a sudden they're not the golden child anymore. And now they're totally ignored because that parent can't relate to them anymore. It's like, oh, we only had this close relationship because you were just like me. But now that you're not like me, I don't know who you are and I don't care to know who you are. So yeah, I'm sure that actually happens quite a bit. I'd never thought of it before, but I bet it does. I can't even believe, and that's wild. JJ says, I got that too. I'm deficient because I couldn't afford the lifestyle of a millionaire's daughter was used to. We were lucky to get $10 for Christmas. My ex was upset that our father was only giving her 3,000. She expected 10,000. I was flabbergasted. I serious. That's so wild. Even if it was knock off a few of those zeros, if I gave somebody, if I was a parent and I gave my child a gift and it was, you know, really any gift, but especially $3,000. And if they were to get upset by that, I would just tell them, you know what? I'm sorry. I have failed you as a parent because you're rotten. And I don't know where I went wrong somewhere along the line, but you are so incredibly ungrateful. And we need to really back some stuff up. So I'm going to be taking that $3,000 back and we're going to go spend some time at a homeless shelter and we're going to serve up Christmas dinner there because we got some work to do because I have somehow unintentionally created a monster. Ah, gosh, ridiculous. Let's see here. Oh, let me scroll up. That's really difficult. Overcomer says, um, my daughter was raised by a cold-hearted narcissist that kicked her out of his home when she decided to not do everything he demanded. Now she's completely rebelled. I'm dealing with the behaviors. She's abusive towards me, and I don't know how to take care of me. If it was a partner, he would be gone. Yeah, that kind of stuff is so difficult. How old is your daughter? I think, for starters, teen years in general are difficult. Difficult. She's 17. Yeah. And I think especially, I mean, not to minimize that, but like teenage years are difficult, especially 17, because they're at this weird state where like they're an adult in so many ways and they're making so many adult decisions, but then they're still treated like a child. And it's just this awful line, for both parents and teenagers to try to walk. Oh, she'll be 18 in 2 months. Well, that's good. That kind of, can solve your problem right there. My brother and I both were very difficult as teenagers for, I think, very much the same reason. We just really, I still apologize to my mom for stuff. We were just off the chain when, and in like in some ways, but in other ways I never drank when I was in high school. I never, if I ever snuck out, it was never for anything, terrible, but like we would just go to our friend's house. We'd go to our friend's house and watch movies like The Breakfast Club. But I was just difficult, defiant kind of a kid. My brother was too. We just had a lot of issues. We were just really angry, just really, really angry. And I ended up moving out when I was 17. So that first, I don't think I moved back in with my mom. We got into it, and then she was like, you got to go. So like I ended up moving out, and yeah. Yep. It's okay. It's okay to have boundaries. She's going to be 18 in 2 months. It's okay to say, you know what, kiddo, I love you, but this, like, these are the house rules. And if you're going to be here, house rules. And as soon as she's 18, being like, okay, well, like, I love you. You're more than welcome here. I want to see you. I want to be in your life. I want us to get along famously. But I think you're at a place where and I would put it on her, you know what? You need your independence. You're a strong-willed, stubborn child. And I think it's time you just go. And I hope that you bloom. And I wouldn't even it doesn't have to be like you're throwing her out or a negative experience. It's just, I think it's time you go find you. You need to go find you. Oh, yeah, that's okay. Overcomer says, yeah, she just decided to go to Oakland with who knows who, 6 hours away without my consent. I filed a missing child report. I was supposed to go to a retreat this weekend. Now I don't know if I should. Do you have can you track the app on her phone where you can find out her location? Have you, I'm guessing you've called her friends. If I guess, I don't even know, parents even know friends' phone numbers. I've got a cell phone now. Okay. No, you've been in contact. You've been in contact with her. No, but she refuses to share who she's with. When is she coming back? Did she say? Yeah, Overcomer says okay, she didn't say when she's coming back. Overcomer was saying, I was thinking I would let her know I'll be leaving and have her go with her aunt when she returns. Yeah, I don't blame you. If she's safe, probably a boyfriend or somebody like that. I, as long as she's safe and, yeah, I would say go have a good time and just say, you know what, we're not doing this. Like, this is not how we roll here, where you can just come and go as you please. And, yeah. Let's see here. Let me scroll up. Cha-cha-cha. Life After Gray says, my stepdaughter still loves her father, but knows he has a big problem. Her mom is totally out of her life. I think she just doesn't want to be an orphan. Yeah. And it's one of the hardest things for children, I think for any of us, for sure, but especially for children, is when they've been abandoned by one parent, and then they have another parent who's not emotionally connected to them for whatever reason, personality disorder, you name it. Then yeah, there definitely is this scramble to hold on to what they have. It's sort of like, well, if I let my dad go in this situation, then I have nothing. And that's really, really a hard thing to wrap your mind around, especially when both parents are alive. Because then it's sort of like, well, then what's so wrong with me? And the reality is nothing to do with her. It's both the parents have their own stuff going on. Let's see, Adrian asks, is there any resources I can recommend to my dad that would be helpful for a guy? He was abused by my mother for 39 years, who I went no contact with 3 years ago. I guess it depends. What do you think he could benefit from? Would it be the validation of what he went through, or would it be, do you think, hearing from other men? Trying to think. I don't know. Can you guys think of any good resources for? Is your dad on the internet? Is he interested in being on the internet? My book, Start Here, the first one, it's like explains all of the common terms and different concepts. It's just like a 101 kind of a book. Like, it's the foundational thing. It tends to provide a lot of clarity for a lot of people that are kind of fumbling around with trying to figure out what happened. That might be a good place to start. But if he would find more validation from Yeah, other men. Yeah, people are saying Richard Grannon seems to be good for men. If he's open to internet kind of stuff, that might be a good place to start. Okay, let's see here. Excuse me. JJ says, I binged on Netflix the OA. After you mentioned it, there's a lot of metaphors around these topics. The OA was weird. Yes. Did you see the second season? It gets even weirder. First season was, there's been quite a few really just clever, very different shows that have come out lately. I really just my mind does not work like that. I have such a tremendous amount of respect for people who write fiction like that. It's like, where do you guys come up with all of this? It's mind boggling. Kim says, Dana, thanks for the insight into our children's lives. I've been worried about my son right now. He's been in denial for years about his dad. And, Kim, I think, I don't know if I've ever really come across somebody that had, that's really able to even come out of that denial and see things clearly until they were in their late 20s. Just from other friends, just thinking about different people that I've talked to, my own experiences, people in the support group, it tends, because this is just normal. When a person grows up like this, it's sort of like, well, that's just dad or that's just mom. And it doesn't register as significant as it is because we somehow managed to struggle through. And so we just don't, it's like the whole saying, like the last thing the fish notices is the water. Like, this is just what we've always been in. So we just don't even notice it. And for many people, they don't even start questioning it or anything. I think if I had to put money on something, my guess would be that unless there's really horrific childhood abuse, people just tend to kind of limp through life. They don't realize there's a problem until they stumble into a therapist's office. Either they've got some sort of alcohol issue, substance abuse issue, or they're going through a divorce. Like, there's some sort of major pain point that brings them into therapy. And then that's when all of this other stuff starts coming out. But I think for most people, it just becomes their new level of normal. I mean, it took, for me personally, I mean, my gosh. I don't even know if I'm still there. Like, there's still just these different waves of realization, that kind of hit with time. But yeah, seeing stuff clearly is just really difficult. Yeah, Kim says, whenever I would bring up the topic, he would turn white and leave the room. My daughter, on the other hand, was not under her dad's spell. And she says, yeah, he just turned 30. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it tends to take a bit. And different people tend to have more, and my guess too, and this is again, just kind of a sweeping statement, but emotional stuff in general, men aren't socialized. to really discuss this. Whereas women, you know, my goodness, like, especially when we're younger, we talk to friends, most of us talk to friends nonstop, and you're on the phone all the time. And there's much more of this processing that's going on, where the messages that are given to boys is, you know, don't talk about anything. It means you're weak. It means you're a sissy, these kinds of things. So they tend to just stuff it down inside. And that tends, you know, they might deny it, or it comes out as anger, or what have you. So it can be challenging. It can be really challenging to get through to a person who, you know, has been suppressing their feelings for a long time. Even people who are interested in exploring their feelings. It's amazing how our brains work and how much stuff can really be suppressed. So. Let me scroll up here. Yeah, I have a friend in a similar situation, Kim, except her children are significantly younger. And the older daughter, it was like a light switch. Her father, long history of cheating, and it just was something else. Anyways, so they were in the middle of a divorce, and then he got upset and he became physical with the teenager. And she's a big kid, but still, right? I mean, like, I shouldn't have even said that, because it doesn't even matter. He became physical with her. And at that moment, she just was like, I'm done with you, and refused to have anything. You know, she was in his way, and he was getting upset and was ended up hurting her. So whereas the younger one continues to defend, and it's, you know, justify and all that kind of stuff. It's, I don't know. I'm proud of the older one for seeing the stuff for what it is. That's difficult. I've never seen anybody just light switch, snap, and just be like, okay, and stick with it. Kiara says, hi all, I'm almost 2 weeks out of a narcissistic relationship. Ugh. Feeling so much better now and able to feel and see clearly. It's covert, aggressive manipulator. Well, welcome here. And yes, 2 weeks out. I tell you, those first few days and first few weeks are the worst. So glad that you found us and you found some support, and that you're able to feel and see things more clearly. That's a huge victory. Huge, huge. Yeah, Benjamin says, it took a divorce process for me to look closer to myself and to find out what kind of monster I'm dealing with, as in what my ex is. I think that's most people. Most people tend to experience some sort of significant breakup, and then they're like, what on earth just happened? Because this is so outside the realm of normal. The lies, the deceit, the craziness, the over the top behavior, the just everything. If we're talking about a narcissist, somebody that's just, you know, the projection, the triangulation, the like the complete lack of empathy, the lack of remorse. I mean, all of it is it's just mind boggling. And I think a lot of people tend to kind of, show up to they somehow, I don't know how you guys find it, these channels. I'm surprised that people even think to look for this stuff on the internet, but they find channels like this and then start putting the pieces together. Okay, let's see here. Let me scroll up. Yep, Life After Gray was saying, yeah, men aren't supposed to talk about feelings or have them. Yeah, I think we're at kind of the last generation with that, which is a good thing. Kind of realizing men are people too. So okay, let's see here. Buzzing Bee asks, if my ex only raged over money and the new supply is providing much more, then will she ever see it? Like, will she ever see the rage? My guess is yes, that she'd still see the rage. It's just going to come out in a different way when she doesn't get, something else, when something doesn't go their way. Yeah. Kim, I felt the same way. Kim says, I remember when I stumbled upon what narcissistic personality disorder was, I was horrified. It took a while to absorb that gut-wrenching truth. Yes, I felt the exact same way. Same when I really began looking into like sociopathic behavior. It was just, so spot on. And then it was even more wild to realize that this many other people had experienced stuff like this. Like, wow. Rebecca asks, does anyone know about Abraham Hicks? Yeah, I do. What you got? what you thinking about? Rebecca says, I was asking because I think she has NPD. So let's talk about Abraham Hicks for a little bit, because I agree with what Kim is saying, and I agree with the concerns Rebecca is saying. So Kim was saying, Abraham Hicks, I highly recommend. Okay. So for those of you who are not familiar with Abraham Hicks, where to even start with this? Let me just back it up, okay? So just hang tight, because this hopefully will all make sense. Back in, I want to say it was about the 70s, there was this all this Abraham Hicks, all of his stuff started really with two other people. There was Napoleon Hill with the book Think and Grow Rich. That's where all of this, like the secret law of attraction stuff, originates from. Then in the 70s, there was a woman by the name of Jane Roberts, and she found fame through claiming that she was channeling an entity that went by the name Seth. And you can see, they're both so scary. Like, don't watch it at night, it'll freak you out. But there's recordings on YouTube of Jane Roberts channeling Seth. And she wrote a book called Seth Speaks. And it's, I mean, it's all kind of just psychology with kind of just this new age slant to it, is basically what it is. Anyways, so it was a few years later that Esther Hicks is her name. Esther and Jerry Hicks, they were a couple, married couple. Then she supposedly began taking up meditation. And within a few sessions, next thing you know, she starts being able to channel this entity that calls itself Abraham. And that's why they call her Abraham Hicks. And so Abraham speaks through her. And however, I mean, I think it's all a big show. I don't believe that this is actually occurring whatsoever, because all Abraham can tell her is what psychology can tell us. So it's nothing that a person, couldn't already know. And a lot of the stuff that she even says isn't even accurate. So it's not, you would think that this huge extraterrestrial entity would have accurate knowledge, or have accurate knowledge in something that was more verifiable. But there's a few of these people out there. There's another Paul, what's his name? Daryl Anka, who's, interestingly enough, Paul Anka's cousin. Daryl Anka channels an entity and goes by the name Bashar. And that's very theatrical. So it's interesting. So with that said, all of the theatrics and all of this aside, I think it's a bunch of people that found ways to find fame and fortune. The way that Esther Hicks describes certain concepts about like emotional health, I guess, is very spot on, and she articulates it very well. Probably better than possibly the best I've ever heard. Like, she really does a great job of articulating it. The whole law of attraction thing is problematic, though, because that's it's a form of what's known as magical thinking. So in magical thinking, it's when we think that we have more control over certain events than we do. So for example, another form of magical thinking would be like superstitious behavior. So thinking, I've got this magic baseball hat, and when I go watch my team play, my hat somehow helps my team to win. It's very much along the same lines. And so it's the same kind of stuff with The Secret. No, see, my team won when I wore the hat, so therefore my hat, this actually works. And there's a couple, this is actually, I address part of this in my book, The Narcissist Playbook. I'm planning on putting a section on my website that goes more into this, because there's some psychology that's in the middle of the law of attraction stuff, which is spot on, and it's important and it's significant. But then there's a lot of kind of magical thinking and kind of pseudoscience that it's wrapped up in, that makes it, not only does it make it inaccurate, it can ruin a person's life. So it's important that we're able to sort out what's what and why. So for example, with the whole magic hat thing, like, I wear my hat, my team wins, therefore my hat actually works, kind of a thing. With law of attraction, it's thought of like, okay, if I set this intention of I want to manifest, let's say, I don't know, $1 million into my life, right? And a practitioner of the law of attraction would say, well, you set this intention, and then you start looking for the evidence of that intention to manifest. So any money that you find $1 in your pocket, you find a quarter on the street, you find, a nickel in a vending machine. These are all signs that you're manifesting money into your experience. And so people are like, yes, this absolutely works. I've been finding money right and left, this, that, and the other. There's a couple different things that are going on with when that happens. So first, it's confusing causation with correlation, just like the magical baseball hat. I wore my hat, my team won. the way that we can prove this is you can see, okay, well, you can run an experiment and see, okay, how many times did your team win when you did wear the hat versus how many times did they win when you didn't wear the hat? Kind of, is there any type of like statistical significance that's occurring here outside the law of just random chance? So you're confusing causation with correlation. Then there's also a term called confirmation bias. And it's when we filter any additional incoming information to support an existing theory, basic or belief that we already have. So this is why superstitious behavior tends to take root, because we're able to point at it and say, no, I have worn my magical hat, my lucky hat, and for the past 3 games, my team has won. Therefore, it works. You can't deny this because I wear my hat, they win. Where this stuff really takes a turn is because the law of attraction talks about, well, like attracts like. And they'll say, oh, it's the law of attraction. It's the law, just like the law of gravity. And no, it's not. So just calling something a law doesn't make it a law. Like a scientific law, it's tested, it's retested, it's proven, it's proven to be valid based on, what we currently know. So like doesn't attract like. It does to a point, right? And that's kind of the thing with all magical thinking. Like, and I use the example in the book that even a broken clock is right twice a day. So just because it works some of the time doesn't mean that it always works. So when a person's finding money and they're like, oh, this is proof of my manifest. I'm causing this. I'm manifesting this because I set the intention. They're using confirmation bias to interpret their results. When we set an intention, here's where it's a good thing and it's an accurate thing and it's a powerful thing, is when we set an intention. So let's say you decide that you want to make money, or you want to find a great job, or what have you. What's actually going on is that we're activating a part of our brain called the reticular activating system. And this part of our brain filters information based on what's significant to us. This is why you can be in a party and you hear somebody mention your name, or somebody, even the name of like your children or your partner or your pet, somebody that's significant to you, that you would notice that versus other information that you don't, because our brain is processing, it's exposed to millions of bits of data a second, and it's too much for us to process all at once. And so our brain is constantly looking for patterns and ways to more effectively process information. And that's one of it. One of the ways it does that is through the reticular activating system. So like if you, for example, you do anything, right? You name your pet, or you name your child a name, and then next thing you know, oh my gosh, it seems like everybody's naming their child the same name. You want to buy a certain car, you buy a brand new red Volkswagen Beetle, and then next thing you know, you start seeing red Volkswagen Beetles everywhere, and you think, what is there a sale on? Like what happened? How is this happening? And even it's the same thing with narcissistic abuse. People are like, man, I'm seeing these people everywhere. And a lot of this is because we're talking about it, we're thinking about it, it's on your radar now. So it's a very significant way that you can, really kind of control like what you're noticing in the environment. Where this stuff kind of goes off the rails and becomes problematic is when people don't want to talk about things that are negative because they don't want that on their radar. And so people will intentionally avoid talking about abuse or talking about like home security, because they're afraid, they're like, I don't want this active in my vibration because then I'm going to somehow attract crime. And that's where, no, it doesn't work that way. Like this theory holds true to a point, but then it falls apart. Kind of the like attracts like kind of thing, because we all know, like sometimes bad things happen to good people and sometimes good things happen to bad people. So it's not, yeah, there's more to it than that. So here's another way, and this is what I mentioned in the book, that I see this go really wrong. And it's so scary. And this is why I mentioned it in the book, was because I see my goodness, almost every single live stream, somebody will say, well, Dana, how can I stop attracting these people? And, basically, what did I do? What did I do to deserve this? Or they're very interested in the law of attraction, and they're like, okay, well, how did I attract this abusive sociopath into my life? What does this mean? Am I an abusive sociopath? What does this mean about me? So then that can cause a lot of confusion and unnecessary victim blaming. Also, if a person sets an intention, this is another way I see this become a problem. Well, okay, so let me back up. So then people are like, they get so focused on trying to kind of raise their vibration, change their vibration, only focus on positive things, thinking that'll keep me safe, because like only attracts like. So if I only focus on everything that's positive, and if I just bring in kind of all of this amazingness into my life, then I won't attract problematic people. And that's not the case, because problematic people are attracted to any one of us for any number of reasons. So boundaries is the only way to prevent that from happening, is, to get them out of your life, basically. So we can't help who we attract, but we can help how long we keep somebody in our life and to what degree. So then the other way that I see this is where people will say, oh, okay, I really want to attract this perfect partner. And they get really clear with their intention. They look a certain way. They have certain hobbies. They have certain type of sense of humor. This is what this person's really into: dogs. They're really into, camping. They're really into, craft beer. I don't know, whatever. Like they're really into all these certain things. And then they're really focused, or they're setting this intention of this person. And then a week later or a month later, whatever, in walks this person. And then they think, I manifested that. And then they're very quick to drop all boundaries and to move at a whirlwind pace, because in their mind, they're thinking, well, I caused this person to show up in my life experience. I don't want to start creating doubt, because if I start creating doubt, then the universe is going to pull them away. So I just need to realize I did everything right. Like I had my vibration was really high. I set my intention. And then I attracted this person. And so this is just meant to be. And then, I see stories on the internet all the time for this kind of stuff. And then it crashes and burns. They lose their life savings. This person's a sociopath, this kind of stuff. So it's important. So the book, I am working on finishing the next book that's going to come out is the book that I'm working on with Agatha, with her paintings in it. It's kind of just this it's a visual experience through abuse and through healing from abuse. So, but after that book, then the next one I have planned is all of the lessons that I feel are important for people to learn, to make sure that they learn from this, because it's so easy. I mean, my gosh, it's so easy to miss quite a few of them. And there's already been quite a few of us that have gone around this mountain a few times and have done a lot of the learning. So like you don't need to learn the hard way, because there's been many people that have already gone down that route. So I think that'll be a good book of just, at a minimum, these are the top however many lessons. because there's just so much information out there, and it's so difficult to, we read a book a month in book club, and we've been doing this for a couple of years now, I don't know, 3-4 years now. And, it's a lot of information to try to just boil down into these are the bare minimum points to hit. Let's see here. Yeah. And Jack was saying, kind of the religious spin on this is the gospel of prosperity. It just kind of veiled greed. And stuff. Yeah, it's, there's, it can be easy to get caught up in some stuff. And if you're able to discern and figure out, okay, like, what can I hold on to with this? And then what can I let the rest go? Like, where does this fall apart? Like, where's that line? That's so important, because like I was saying with Abraham Hicks, there's some stuff, she talks about like the emotional scale. She has this concept of high flying discs. There's certain things that she talks about as far as like emotional well-being that up until the point that it falls apart, I think is absolutely fantastic. But if you don't see kind of where it falls apart, then it can get you into trouble. Okay, let's see here. Karen says, hi, Dana. How is everyone tonight? We are doing pretty good. Covering lots of ground tonight. You came in at the tail end of a very strange conversation. There's also a part in the book, man, I had such these 2 chapters in this book in particular, I went round and round and round for months on trying to figure out what to put in there and what not to put in there. And I had sent the book to an editor. I thought it was going to be done like 7 months ago. And the one editor was like, you are going way off track. You need to really rein in the law of attraction stuff. And she's like, just cut it and then put it somewhere else, because it just goes way off base. So I did. So I just kind of cover a little bit, and then I have people like, okay, bro, have this discussion more on my website, or we can have it here, because it does go so far off track. But then there's also a section where I talk about different logical fallacies. And if you've never had a logic and critical thinking class, which most people haven't, it's kind of, heavy stuff, but it's absolutely fascinating. And it's kind of philosophy 101, like finding the truth or the validity, I guess, of different statements, and where things go off the rails and why. And so in the book, I think I cover like seven or 8 different logical fallacies that both targets of abuse and manipulative people tend to use. And then explaining, it's again, I'm not a philosopher. It's very surface level understanding of it, but I'm going to be posting more information on my website. So for those who are like, yes, this is totally 3 a.m. conversation material, and you really want to do a deep dive into it, that you can dig further into it. But understanding these, and there's hundreds of logical fallacies, but I would say there's probably 10 or 15 that are most frequently used that we all tend to slip into that apply to this. So then I'll be using examples. So for example,
one of the fallacies that I have in the book is hasty generalization. And it's when somebody has a limited experience and they're very quick. This is kind of where stereotypes come from. They have a limited experience, and then all of a sudden, nope, this small select sample means that everybody that's like this is this way. I see this a lot too with recovery. Oh no, Scorpios. Scorpios are the problem. They swear off Scorpios. Oh no, it's redheads. Oh no, it's older men. Oh no, it's online dating. Oh no, it's this. It's that. And it's, so speaking about things like in absolute terms, like when those two things, there might be overlap there, but it's not because of this thing. It just, it's not caused by, it's not because they're a Scorpio that they're manipulative. It's not because they have red hair that they're manipulative. It's not because you met them online that they're manipulative. It's because they're manipulative that they're manipulative, and seeing the behavior clearly for what it is. So that was one, hasty generalization. Appeal to ignorance was another one. Appeal to hypocrisy was another one. So appeal to ignorance is basically like if you can't prove it, then if you can't prove it, it's either true or it's false. So like if you I don't know, if somebody says, oh, you never caught me cheating, therefore I didn't cheat. It's like, well, no, it just means that you haven't been caught cheating. You may or may not have cheated, right? So I'm trying to think of some other ones. Some of the ones that I'm going to be putting up on my website, which also pertain, but like, again, there was this, I went off on this tangent and it was just too long for the book, was there's appeal to authority, and then there's appeal to false authority. This is a very common thing when people are struggling. When a person has an external locus of control and they're kind of feeling like life is happening to them, that they're not in the driver's seat, and especially if they're seeking validation from without, outside of themselves, then they very commonly will turn to somebody that they think is an authority for guidance. And so that I kind of go over that, like how that can be a problem and when to tell. I see this a lot too in kind of a lot of like law of attraction well, I mean, it's out there in general, but I really see a lot of it in kind of new age type communities where people will, I'm an authority in this because I'm a 4th degree theta healer, and therefore this is my experience in that. And it's like, well, that's not, you might be a 4th degree theta healer, but that's never been proven to be a valid, valid authority. So I don't know. It's just interesting, all the different ways to think about information. Okay. Now we scroll up here and see. Jennifer says, I asked my therapist today, but I didn't feel like I was given a full answer. Do you think a critical thinking class would help me with my decision-making skills? Because my 2 major problems are decision-making and being assertive and trusting my instincts. That's maybe. It's hard to say. This kind of stuff can go one of 2 ways. It can either provide a person with clarity, or it can kind of get them further tangled up. Can you, we should, gosh, I'm just, sorry, timer. Trying to think that everything that you're talking about, the decision making, being assertive, and instincts, we can talk more about that next week. I do cover a lot of that in my book, because again, this is very, very common. So let me write this down, and then I'll bring that for next week so we can go over it. Okay. Decision making. Being assertive, trusting instincts. For a lot of people, it can help for them to understand that it's kind of a lot of the science and the psychology behind these things, because the trusting the instincts, a lot of people, especially if they've ever been abused, have a really difficult time trusting their judgment, especially in a situation like you were in, Jennifer, where when you're getting these conflicting things going on at a young age. Somebody who's supposed to care about you is hurting you. And so from a young age, it's sort of like, well, I don't really know who to trust then, because who I'm supposed to trust is broken my trust. And that creates a lot of this confusion that they understandably, and there's gaslighting, there's manipulation. So it's a lot of psychological and emotional abuse that goes along with childhood abuse in general. So yeah, it's totally understandable that a person would really struggle with that. But what you're saying, so because of that, when a person doubts their instincts, when they've been told what's harmful isn't a problem, or that's been minimized, these kinds of things, it's like somebody takes a magnet to your internal compass, and you're just kind of, I don't know. Is it me? Is it them? Is this a big deal? I'm not sure if it's a big deal. These kinds of things. It can help to understand more about your instincts and more about boundaries and these kinds of things. But a lot of this just really comes from getting more deeply rooted within yourself and realizing that if kind of, I think, where the line with healthy boundaries are. So with trusting your instincts and stuff, it's not even that we're saying, okay, your instincts are going off about a person. We don't need to know if our instincts are right. So we don't need to know, like, oh, I've got a really funny feeling about that person. I bet I feel like that they're dangerous. Okay. We don't need to know for sure if they are in fact dangerous. All we need to know is that we're uncomfortable around them. So being uncomfortable around a person is enough evidence that it's now time for us to get some distance from them. So, because if the only way that we can find out if they're dangerous is for them to hurt us, then this isn't a good way to try to figure that out or to measure it. So we have to err on the side of caution and just get some distance. Because the only way that we can really discern whether or not a person is safe versus unsafe is with time and with them having appropriate behavior, consistent appropriate behavior over time. So for a lot of people, it's a game changer, just realizing, like, the new line in the sand. I don't do squirrely behavior. I don't spend time around people that I'm just perpetually confused around, or that I feel unsafe, or that I find myself questioning. So if you can think about it, it helps to kind of to get a base level, realize that you most likely don't always feel, your instincts aren't always going off around everybody, even though it might feel like it. There's probably certain people in your life that you you feel safe, secure, calm around, like thinking about those people or those experiences where you weren't feeling dysregulated, where you weren't feeling confused and upset and introspective. Is it me? Is it them? Is it what's going on? That you're just feeling calm. So the decision-making thing, this, it can help to start making small, insignificant decisions. And I know you've probably heard me talk about this, but little things that you would think don't make a difference really do, because I like to look at it as it's like a muscle. And so, it's like a little 1 pound, little weight, little things where, what you want for dinner, how do you like to wear your hair? Do you like it up or do you like it down? What kind of TV show do you like, the Kardashians, or do you like Game of Thrones, or do you like both, and why? And really kind of gaining some clarity about making just the practice of asserting yourself and finding your voice in little insignificant ways that don't seem to matter. And then I know you've heard me talk about this before, but that whole, well, Marie Kondo, hers is better. Like, it just boils it down to makes it a lot easier. The whole what sparks joy. So getting in tune with what brings you joy in your life. My version of that was finding things on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being what really juices you, 5 being what you're lukewarm about, 0 being ice cold, and starting to think about things on those terms, not from a judgmental standpoint, but just from a self-awareness standpoint of, yes, this is what I find nourishing. This is what I find draining. That can help. So the more you're in tune with that, the easier it is to assert yourself. Okay, Jennifer says here, a lot of times I get the idea that I have imposter syndrome because I'll constantly think I know what I'm talking about. And then someone else will bring up a point that I might not have thought about. And then I second guess myself all the time. So that's partly why I asked. So, okay, yeah. I wouldn't even worry about that. So I would almost try to embrace that, because if you're open to growth, it's always gonna be that. Always, always, always. I encounter this almost, if not every day, close to it. And that's kind of just the beauty, I think, of other people's opinions about things, and different information that somebody has absorbed that you haven't. Like, this is where I think self-compassion really comes into play and I think this is probably a big part of imposter syndrome, is we all have this idea that there's these people out there that just have it all figured out, and like that, and that if we don't, then there's something deeply flawed within us. And the reality is everybody's got their own strengths and weaknesses, and everybody's got certain things figured out and certain things that they're still working on. And it's just part of it. It's part of life. If we all started at the finish line, it would be a pretty uneventful journey. So yeah, the imposter syndrome is a tricky beast, that's for sure. Yes. Jennifer says, it's so hard for me to feel confident in things because I'm constantly open to things. And you'd think that would be a good thing, but I wish I could just feel comfortable in my decisions. It can take a little while. to kind of find that line. I'm the exact same way, where like it's hard to make a decision, but then also stay open to possibility. And yeah, just to kind of walk that line. I get it. Totally get it. Robin says, "Oh, I love this idea of making small decisions." Yeah, it can be totally game changing, Robin. And that might sound really strange to some people, but for so many of us, we've lived our life on default and have been kind of taught to settle for crumbs. And so then we're like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. I don't like, do I like this, or did I just buy this because it was on sale? Like, do I really like this, or is this something that I felt I should have liked? It's really wild when you start opening your eyes to it and start really getting clear about like, okay, like what do you really like and what do you not like? And paying attention to all of the different judgment that can surface with this of, oh, well, you should be happy. I can't believe you don't like this one outfit. Those shoes were, I don't know, $60. And that, some people out there would be happy to have a pair of shoes, let alone a $60 pair of shoes. You're ungrateful. This, da, da, da. There can be all of this chatter that comes up, and kind of sitting with that and watching it as it does. And if you're in a place where you can explore, like, what does this mean? And where does this voice come from? It's just, yeah, a lot of insight that can happen there. Let's see here. It's interesting too, the whole, if you go with my more expanded scale, the 0, 5, and then 10, when you start noticing, especially, so to me, I think the zone for you're like, yes, this is, things are really clicking in life. It's really at like about an 8 or above. So, and again, this obviously is not an exact science. So it's just kind of, and it's going to change. How you feel about something today is probably going to be very different than how you feel about it in 6 months or 6 years from now. And that's how it should be. So, well, not how it should be, but that's generally how it is. So it's this continual reassessment of getting in tune with how you truly feel about things. It's easier to start with things that you don't have an emotional investment in. For a lot of probably men too, but women, I think starting in their closet can be very difficult, because there's oftentimes, you've got clothes. They're like, well, if I gain or lose, these are my fat pants. These are my skinny pants. These are my someday pants. These are my, you know what I mean? There's all kinds of stuff going on, like emotional stuff going on in our closet. So sometimes it's easier to start in like the kitchen with dishes, or at a, I don't know, like the guest room, or your office, maybe, things that you're not as connected to. And then the next round with that is then starting to think about different friendships or different relationships you've had in your life, and kind of where they would be on that continuum. And then to start asking yourself, why did you have clothes in your closet that you absolutely hate, that don't fit, that were never flattering, that were, you know what I mean? Like why did please tell me I'm not alone in this. Okay. That there's people out there that have clothes in their closet. Like, I don't like this material. I don't like the way this is cut. I don't like anything about this, and then examining, why on earth do I even own this? What was the thinking behind it? Very, very telling. So Okay. So with that said, uh, oh, that's interesting. True Seeker says, yeah, what Dana is talking about literally changed my world. I was living in a basement, now an apartment I love where no narcissist can find me, but it started so small. Yeah. And Robin says, I agree. What a game changer that I would have never even considered. Thank you. Yeah, it really, and it's so cool because it's like pulling a string on a sweater. Like you'll start in one area. And then if you keep doing this, it's seriously like seeing your life for the first time. And it's amazing because then you're going to start looking at friendships and then relationships and then food. And then it's so cool. Yes, I love it. I love it. I'll be curious to know what you find with that. And then two, real quick, and then we'll do our wrap up meditation thing. Like once you do have this realization, sort of like Truth Seeker was saying, um, in her life, it started with new sheets. Yes. And then living in a basement and then moving to a different apartment. Once you realize, yes, actually, this is not for me. Like if this basement is really dark and I didn't realize that my mood here is continually like a 4 and that I do significantly better in a place that has a lot more light or, what have you. You kind of, again, you'll kind of know if you start getting in tune with this. And then if you're out looking for a new place to live, you're like, you know what? The difference in price is $75 a month or whatever it might be. And you can kind of think, okay, is this a good investment? And can I do this? Can I make this investment of this much more money? And this is what it's bringing into my life. It helps to you just prioritize things totally differently when you know how you truly feel and the difference it makes. Yeah. Bonnie says, yes, Dana, I do feel like I'm looking at life for the first time. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I know, right? Salon says, it's also really scary seeing my life as like, I can't believe I was just floating around for years. Yes. I feel the exact same way. I think a lot of people do. But I think that's probably part of why I do what I do is when you realize, oh my gosh, I feel like I've been going through life with a paper bag over my head. And then you realize, oh my gosh, no, this is a result of not knowing yourself, which is a result of these different abuse experiences. And then you realize, oh my gosh, there's lots and lots and lots of other people that are also going around paper bag over their head and they don't even realize it. And you realize the dangers of how dangerous that can be to just go through life and that there's really awful people out in the world. It like, it makes me anxious. I think it was kind of the mama bear in me of let me just share with you what I have learned and hopefully it'll help to some extent. And because of course everybody's going to have their own lesson. You know what I mean? Like everybody's going to have their own lessons and things to learn. But yeah, once that paper bag comes off and you see things clearly, it is kind of this almost like frantic level of energy of wanting to let other people know and kind of get them to see too. So. Jennifer was saying, yeah, one thing I was told was that it was no wonder I disassociated coming home from work. First of all, I hate my job. Second, my hoard grew so much that it was overwhelming. And it's okay to ask for help when you're overwhelmed. Sometimes it's just too much for us to know where to start. But once you get it under control, then you can start a routine to make sure it doesn't get out of control again. Yep. Yep. And I think too, if we can all start looking at our own behavior in terms of it's really wild when you think about it like this. Every single thing that you do, you're trying to meet some sort of need. But you probably don't realize it because all of this stuff is under the radar. You know, what do they say? Something like 95% of all of our behavior is driven by our subconscious mind. So we're only 5% awake anyhow. It's all subconscious. And when we're trying to meet those needs, we can get so down on ourselves, like, oh man, I spent too much money. I gained weight. I've lost weight. I'm doing stuff that doesn't really seem to make sense. I'm staying in relationships that don't serve me. That sounds terrible. That relationships that aren't nourishing is what I meant. We're doing these things that are just, our lives aren't working in some sort of way. We're hoarding. We're drinking too much alcohol. This, that, and the other, but everything that we're doing is designed subconsciously to meet some sort of need. And then a lot of making our life work is trying to figure out, well, then what need is that trying to fill? And then the next step is, and then how can I meet that need in a healthier way? It's amazing. Our brains are so amazing. Just absolutely wild how all this works. Jabora says, do you know your last name means Lucifer? Yes, technically it does not mean Lucifer. But yeah, Morningstar was the name. In all fairness, it was the name given to both God and the devil in the Bible, but rest assured, I am neither. So we're good. Robin asked, did you have any other videos or blogs about this topic? And can you link them when this posts? As far as kind of getting to know yourself stuff. I'll have to think. This is a project that I've been wanting to do forever, and I just need to do it. I have a book. So all of these like little insight kind of things, I ended up turning into a journal. It's like a journal that has prompts. So it's called, there's a 3-year version of this, and then there's a 1-year version of this. This one, they're both called Insight Journals. You can find them if you go to Amazon and look for my name, Dana Morningstar. But each day has a different question, and they're all geared to help you gain insight and to get more in tune with this. I've been meaning to take a lot of these questions and get them out of the journal and into regular rotation so we could have more of a discussion without people having to get the journal, and you know what I mean? But that hasn't happened yet. Let's see. Chrissy asked, Dana, do you go to therapy currently? I feel like I always want to stay in therapy even after I'm healed because I feel like it's been so helpful. I am currently not in therapy, but I have been thinking about going back. I would like to do some EMDR and to just kind of get into stuff. I'm all about like same, like self-development, self-improvement, self-awareness. It's just it's, you know, it's where it's at. So I was seeing a pretty good therapist here in town, but then I left my job and left my insurance and all that. But I should go back because he was really insightful. Let's see here. Salon says, yeah, Dana, I really don't want other people to go through this type of abuse. I hope we as a community can minimize or decrease the harm done. Yeah. And I really feel like we are. I mean, um, you know, there's tens of thousands of people in the support group. There's people that are here every single week. These conversations are happening more and more. It's just kind of the next wave with all of this. So, hey, Joe, thank you for the live stream donation. He says, love you, Dana. Keep up the good work. Good deal. I appreciate you, Joe. Thanks for being here. Okay, so we are running over. So I apologize. Real quick, book club is going to be tomorrow night, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to be discussing the book, The Anger Trap by Les Carter. So I hope you guys can be there. And if not, then I will just see you next week, next Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So with that said, if you want to, we're going to go ahead and go into our guided meditation. So take some time to find a comfortable spot, whether you're sitting down or laying down. Just taking some time to find some stillness. Let's do a series of 3 breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. Just allowing time to be still, to be fully present here in this moment. Focus on bringing your attention down to your feet, wiggling your toes, wiggling your fingers. Noticing the temperature in the room. If it's a little too warm or a little too cool, or if it's just right. Noticing the surface underneath you, whether it's a chair or a bed or the floor. Noticing the different pressure points on your body as it supports you. And continuing to breathe. Allowing each breath to travel down deep deep, deep down into the bases of your lungs. Allowing your chest to easily and effortlessly rise and fall. Noticing the fabric against your skin. If it's soft, if it's itchy, if it's light or if it's heavy. Just bringing your awareness to your body and the things around your body. And again, wiggling your toes, wiggling your fingers, feeling what it feels like to be present in your body. Turning your attention inward until you can feel your heartbeat. Being fully present in your body and in this moment. Knowing that in this moment and in your body, that you are safe. And this is a safe and secure place. Realizing that you know deep down inside when something makes you comfortable and when something makes you uncomfortable. And that when something makes you uncomfortable, it's okay to assert yourself, and it's okay to get some distance if you need to. And it's okay to be self-protective. And that's what it means to be assertive and have boundaries and standards and deal breakers. That you have value, that you have worth, simply because you are alive. And that you are worth treating yourself with value, and you are worth being treated as though you have value. And that there is a lot that is right about you. And now that you're feeling more grounded within your body, let's bring your attention up to the top of your forehead. As we slowly make our way down, relaxing each muscle group as we do. Relaxing your forehead and your eyes. Allowing any tension that you might be storing there to just easily and effortlessly just dissipate. Relaxing your cheeks and your jaw. Allowing your tongue to fall from the roof of your mouth. And allowing your jaw to hang open. Relaxing your neck and your shoulders. Allowing the weight of your shoulders and your arms to let you drop them down and roll them back. Relaxing your elbows and your forearms, your hands and your fingers. Feeling the weight of your arms as they fall into whatever position is the most comfortable for you. Relaxing your chest, your stomach. Noticing as you do if you've been clenching your stomach or your chest. Bringing some healing breaths to those areas and to those muscles. Relaxing your hips, your thighs, your knees and your calves. Relaxing your feet and your toes. Allowing your legs to fall into whatever position is the most comfortable for you. Feeling the weight of your legs as your muscles relax. And again, bringing your attention inward until you can feel or hear your heartbeat. Let's take a few moments and think about, just reflect upon how far you've come in all of this. And all of the skills that you have that have brought you here today. Your dedication to personal growth. Your curiosity. Your bravery. Everything that you've battled through. The wonderful questions that you guys have week after week. Your ability to be compassionate and to support each other in the chat. Your ability to validate others that are going through similar things. So many things that are right about you. So many wonderful skills that you have at this very moment in time. realizing that you are truly stepping into this next new chapter in your life, and that there can be a lot of things right about this next chapter, and that it can be exciting, and that you are the author of this next chapter. And this next chapter can be as long as you would like or as short as you would like. And you get to decide much of what goes in there. So let's just take some time and acknowledge again how far you've come. How strong you are. How much insight you truly have gained about other people and about yourself. It's powerful stuff. It really, really is. So when you're ready, come on back and open your eyes. So Jonathan, I'm reading some of your comments in here. If you have time tomorrow, we're doing our book club, and it's on a book called The Anger Trap, and it's at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And a lot of what you're talking about is what we're going to be discussing tomorrow. So, and just real quick, oftentimes when a person struggles with not feeling connected to other people, or they just don't have they're struggling to have empathy for them, a lot of times that comes from either them being hurt or them associating having feelings like that with being vulnerable. So there's some kind of deeper stuff going on there. But if either of those, I mean, or anything in general, that you're like, boy, you know what, there's some certain things about my personality that I'd really like to work on, but it's kind of scary stuff and it's embarrassing, or even kind of scary to even mention this out loud, just know that you're not alone. And if you ever have been through abuse of any kind, how you're feeling about wanting to care about people, but you just can't, is very, very common. So yeah, I would love to discuss this in more depth. We'll have a chance a little bit for book club tomorrow, but definitely next week, if you're around, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we can go and we can discuss what you brought up, and we'll go from there. Okay. So everybody have a wonderful night. Thank you again for being here, for all your questions, for everything, and just lots of love to you guys. You are not alone. You are not crazy, and you really can move forward and heal from this. So take care. See you tomorrow. Good night.